The film begins with a focus on a warehouse where two men named Freddie and Frank are present. This warehouse operates in the field of shipping medical supplies and human organs. Despite dealing with corpses every day, Freddie and Frank remain enthusiastic and grateful for their jobs. During their break, Frank, who enjoys telling stories, recounts an incident involving living corpses, which happened in a hospital back in 1969. In that year, there was an accident involving a chemical leak that contaminated the corpses in the hospital. As a result, the corpses came back to life and developed a taste for human flesh. To prevent the public from finding out, the local military captured all the reanimated corpses and sent them to various locations, including the warehouse where Frank and Freddie work now. Since Freddie doesn't believe the story, Frank then invites Freddie to see the corpse stored in the basement. Upon arriving there, Frank shows him the corpse, which is now kept in a special tank. When Frank tries to ensure the tank is secure, he accidentally damages it, causing a leak. The chemical gas quickly spreads throughout the warehouse, causing Freddie and Frank to lose consciousness. Meanwhile, outside the warehouse, a group of young people who turn out to be Freddie's friends are seen. It seems they are looking to invite Freddie to hang out with them. But since Freddie doesn't finish work until 10 p.m., they decide to hang out in a nearby cemetery first. Back in the warehouse, Freddie and Frank, who have just woken up, are confused to find one of the corpses missing. When they go upstairs, they are horrified to see that the dog Frank had preserved has come back to life. Not only that, they also hear noises coming from the morgue, which turns out to be the sound of a reanimated corpse. The chemical gas had indeed revived the corpse, just like what happened in 1969. Realizing that the situation is getting out of hand, Frank calls their boss, Bert, to handle the situation. When Bert arrives, he instructs Freddie to open the storage room door. As soon as the door is opened, the reanimated corpse immediately attacks Frank. But fortunately, Freddie and Bert manage to help him. After they successfully restrain the corpse, Bert quickly decapitates it. Even though the head is severed, the corpse remains standing, leaving them all bewildered. After a brief discussion, Bert suggests that they should burn the corpse, essentially cremate it. Meanwhile, Freddie's friends, who are still hanging out in the cemetery, start getting bored since Freddie hasn't shown up yet. At that moment, a woman named Trash decides to perform a provocative dance to liven up the atmosphere. A few moments later, two of Freddie's friends spot three people in the distance heading toward the crematorium. The scene shifts to the crematorium, where a man named Ernie is working. Ernie is startled by the sudden arrival of Bert, Freddie, and Frank, who barge in without notice. Bert immediately explains their purpose: to cremate the dismembered corpse that is still moving. Seeing the corpse still wriggling, the frightened Ernie quickly agrees to cremate it. Once in the cremation room, Ernie starts the cremation machine according to protocol and burns the reanimated corpse wrapped in a plastic bag. In this scene, the smoke from the burning corpse rises through the chimney and swiftly ascends into the sky. At the same time, it starts to rain in the area, and the smoke from the cremation is carried down by the rain, creating acid rain. As the rainwater reaches the ground, it soaks all the graves in the area and affects the corpses within them. As the acid rain intensifies, Freddie's friends decide to head to their car and leave. However, the car won't start, so they decide to go to the warehouse where Freddie works. When they arrive, they hear screams from Tina, who had arrived earlier. When they approach her, they find Tina trapped in the basement with one of the reanimated corpses that had escaped from the tank. As they attempt to rescue Tina, one of the group members is caught by the reanimated corpse and is killed. Those who survive quickly make their escape and eventually manage to exit the warehouse, sealing the room behind them. Not wanting to get into trouble, they return to the cemetery and take shelter in some small structures. At that moment, the graves begin to move, revealing the reanimated corpses that have risen again due to the acid rain. The corpses keep emerging, causing Freddie's friends to scatter in fear. While everyone else is running, Trash is left behind and is eventually overwhelmed and killed by the corpses. Elsewhere, Freddie and Frank start showing strange symptoms after inhaling too much of the chemical gas. Feeling concerned, Ernie calls for medical assistance as Freddie and Frank desperately need treatment. After a few minutes, the medical team arrives and immediately checks on Freddie and Frank. The medics are shocked to find that neither Freddy nor Frank has a pulse, and their blood pressure is 0. A debate ensues among the group, speculating that Freddy and Frank might have already turned into reanimated corpses. During the argument, they hear screams for help from Tina, her friends. Meanwhile, the medics, who are about to leave, are shocked to find their ambulance surrounded by reanimated corpses. The 2 medics are captured by the corpses, and it is certain that they will not survive. Meanwhile, 2 of Freddy's friends who were separated decide to re-enter the warehouse. There, they seal all the entrances, fearing the corpses might attack them. The scene then shifts to Ernie, who is outside looking for the medics in the yard. He is startled when a small reanimated corpse suddenly appears, aiming to attack him. After successfully entering the crematorium, Ernie orders everyone to be on high alert, as the reanimated corpses have surrounded the place. Not long after, they hear a commotion from another room, which turns out to be the sound of reanimated corpses trying to break in. Despite their efforts to block all access points, the situation becomes chaotic when the corpses manage to break through a window. At that moment, one of the men is bitten by a female reanimated corpse and dies. After resealing the window, Ernie moves the female corpse to the main room and ties it to a table. In this scene, everyone is shocked to discover that the corpse can speak like a living person. The corpse explains that death is incredibly painful because the dead can still feel as bacteria devour their bodies and cause decay. When Ernie asks the corpse why they are attacking humans, the corpse responds that by eating humans, the pain of death goes away. The scene then shifts to a police operator who has just received a report that some medical personnel have gone missing. After investigating, the operator finds out that the missing medics were the ones attacked by the reanimated corpses earlier. Not knowing the full extent of the situation, the operator sends 2 police officers to the location where the medics disappeared. Back at the crematorium, Ernie and the others are baffled as Freddy and Frank's bodies start to change color. After some discussion, they agree to quarantine Freddy and Frank, fearing they might fully transform into reanimated corpses. Once they reach a separate room, Ernie and the others leave Freddy and Frank there, but Tina chooses to stay with Freddy. Outside, the 2 police officers who had just arrived are immediately attacked by the waiting reanimated corpses. A short while later, Freddy's body starts convulsing, and he eventually turns into a reanimated corpse. Freddy immediately attacks Tina, but Ernie and the others arrive just in time and douse Freddy with acid. Bert then grabbed chairs to barricade the room. Unfortunately, Ernie's leg is injured by one of the chairs, leaving him unable to walk. As the situation becomes more critical, Bert and the other man decide to make a desperate attempt to reach the police car parked in the yard. Armed with hammers, Bert and the man fiercely fend off the corpses, eventually reaching the car in front of them. Without wasting time, Bert drives to pick up Ernie and Tina, who are still in the crematorium. However, as more corpses keep coming, Bert decides to leave, abandoning Ernie and Tina. As Bert drives past the warehouse, his car is surrounded by a large number of corpses. Cornered, Bert and the man decide to take shelter inside the warehouse. There, they are greeted by the man's friends, who have been waiting for them. Meanwhile, Freddy manages to break through the door that was containing him, causing trouble for Ernie and Tina. As Freddy gets closer, Ernie and Tina quickly hide on the balcony above them. Meanwhile, Frank, who realizes he is still sane, decides to cremate himself to avoid becoming a danger to others. After enduring several terrifying events, Bert finally comes up with an idea. He decides to call the military responsible for handling the reanimated corpses back in 1969. However, since the number is stored in the basement tank, they are forced to unseal it and subdue the corpse inside. Once the corpse is neutralized, Bert and the others head to the basement and contact the military using the number written on the tank. When the call connects, Bert requests information, so that the military can quickly send help. After receiving the necessary information, the military personnel are ordered to launch a ballistic missile to destroy the city and end the outbreak of reanimated corpses once and for all. As the missile is launched and the city is obliterated, the reanimation epidemic finally comes to an end. The destruction wipes out the city, along with all the living dead. However, the fate of the 5 survivors remains uncertain, as no further news of them is heard after the explosion, and the film ends. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. because by subscribing you have supported me to make better videos. See you in the next video.